From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. Prime. Megatron, why are you here?
Prime, I've come to destroy you.
Megatron, this is not the place.
And why is that, Prime?
I have a contractual obligation.
What?
Our show starts next week. I don't even know why we are fighting.
You win this time. I'll get you, Prime.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe. A mighty robot, loved by good, feared by evil. As Voltron's legend grew, peace settled across the galaxy. On planet Earth, a galaxy alliance was formed. Together with the good planets of the solar system, they maintained peace throughout the universe. Until a new horrible menace threatened the galaxy. Voltron was needed once more. This is the story of the super force of space explorers. Specially trained and sent by the Alliance to bring back Voltron, defender of the universe.
Hello and welcome to the Radical Retro Roundup Podcast. I'm your guide, your transport, your dungeon master to the retro realm, Joseph Copel. Welcome to the very first episode where I will be speaking of Voltron. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I want to go over some thank yous, and there are some big thank yous, because without these people, this podcast would not be possible. The inspiration would not be there to do this. So first off, I want to thank Michael and Justin from the Two Dudes and a Nest podcast. Those guys are awesome. Totally go check those guys out. What those guys basically do is take a Nintendo game, and they break it down and they make it fun, and it really feels like just friends talking about Nintendo games. So definitely give those guys a listen. Look them up on Google, iTunes, and definitely check them out. Another great show I want to talk about is the Genesis Gems with Rob and Nick. Again, this is very much like the Two Dudes, where they have a Genesis game in which these guys sit down, they break down, and just dissect it and discuss everything about it. And again, it is a friendly atmosphere. And also, I want you guys to know that both of these podcasts are family friendly, which is a huge thing. Your kids can listen to these podcasts and enjoy them. So definitely check these guys out. These guys are part of a great network called the Retro Junkies Network. They have numerous different podcasts that they do with gaming and retro topics all around. So when you check those guys out, check out those other podcasts as well. I think you'll really enjoy them. Last but not least, I have to thank someone who probably isn't even going to hear this thank you, and it's Colt Cabana from The Art of Wrestling. Colt Cabana and The Art of Wrestling is what got me into podcasts in general. I had never listened to podcasts before. I did not understand them, and it was Colt who had invited me into that realm and really sucked me in. And most of all, I have to thank all of my friends and their kind words and support through this entire process. Without you guys who are listening to this first episode, I know for sure, but anybody who else comes in through those people, like, you guys are the greatest asset I have, and I just want to thank all of you right now from the bottom of my heart, because without you, this podcast would have never gotten up, and this would not be a reality. But here we are, episode 1, and that's an amazing thing. Now on with the show.
Ready to form Voltron! Activate interlocks! Dinotherms connected! Infracell up. Mega thrusters are go. Let's go, Voltron force! Form feet and legs. Form arms and body. And I'll form the head.
Voltron was created in 1984 by Peter Keith and John Teichman. Peter went on to produce more great cartoons like Widget and Denver the Last Dinosaur, and one that probably people really don't remember, which is Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, which we will end up talking at some point on this show about. John, on the other hand, well, his claim to fame was Voltron. So, Voltron was created in 1984 and ran for 124 episodes, and then also had a hour-long special called The Fleet of Doom. And the run time for the show was September 10th, 1984 to November 18th of 1985. Voltron was originally planned to be 3 different series that became one show through seasons. The first show is Go Lion, which of course is the Lion Force, also known as Hakuchio Gorayan. Yeah, that talk about butchering Japanese, that's going to happen on this show. Also, the second vehicle, Voltron, which was season 2, was known as Armored Flight Daruga 15 or Kikyo Kanti Darugro 15. Told you, butchering Japanese on this show. And then the third one that never was released, which was going to be called Voltron 2. I guess they were going to continue it as a third season, but never quite got there. They made a whole bunch of products for it. I know that through Matchbox. And that was Lightspeed Electroid Abagas. And the Japanese name was Kosoko Denji Abagas. Voltron was produced by World Event Productions by editing and English dubbing the Beast King Go Lion. Yeah, I'm not going to butcher Japanese again. The show revolved around 5 main characters who have 5 lion robots in which they pilot. The 5 lions come together to form Voltron. There was Keith in the Black Lion, Lance in the Red Lion, Pidge in the Green Lion, Hunk in the Yellow Lion, and Sven in the Blue Lion, but he only lasted about 6 episodes, and then Princess Allura took over. In the English version, Sven broke his leg and could not be part of the Force anymore, whereas in the original Japanese show, Sven was killed, and later on, a twin brother basically comes to the Force, but in the English one, they use the twin brother thing as Sven coming back for a couple episodes. They protect the planet of Eris, as well as others in the galaxy from the evil king Zarkon, his son Lotor, and the witch Hagar, who all reside from the planet Doom. Hagar creates the huge robot monsters called Robies to terrorize a planet, and Voltron forms and saves the day. Great sequences in which these Robies come about, the conflict between them and Voltron, which is usually Voltron tries the battle, ends up kind of not so much winning. They end up retreating. Of course, then they come back, form Voltron and form the blazing sword, and of course rip apart that road beast as if he is nothing but stardust. I have great memories of Voltron. I loved the show as a kid, and I think one of the things that really made me love this show is probably the way that they set it up. The first 4 episodes of Voltron, you never see Voltron. It starts off with the space explorers. They basically show up to Eris. There's a city, town that's being destroyed. They don't know if anybody's alive or dead. They make an assumption that they all got underground because in cartoons in the 80s, you couldn't say that someone died, basically. Basically, they run into King Zarkon. King Zarkon captures them, takes them to Planet Doom. They end up going through like this gladiator session where they have to survive road beasts, which, again, because of the Americanizing of the cartoon, you are made to believe that these people all just survived fighting these road beasts when, that probably was not the case in all actuality. They eventually escape Planet Doom, and they end up on Eris. And when they end up on Eris, they meet Princess Allura, and they find out about the robot lions, and they end up going out. And it's Lance, Hunk, Sven, and Eric. They all end up having lions. Pidge is left behind. He can't find his lion. And basically, episode 3 and 4 is Voltron as the lions getting their butt kicked. The Voltron Force gets their butt kicked. They get everything handed to them. And 4 ends with basically the lions disabled, and you're wondering what's going to happen. And then finally, in episode 5, after Pidge finds his lion with the help of the little mice, they end up forming Voltron. And the first time that they form Voltron, I mean, as a kid, it's like, oh, it's amazing. Oh, God, they go through that sequence, they form Voltron, the blazing sword, and they cut right through the road beast and cue the music, and boom, we are off and running. I wish I had stuff to really say and like memories of Vehicle Voltron, but unfortunately, Vehicle Voltron doesn't hold the same place in my heart as Lion Force, and I really don't have clear memories of that show. I know my buddy Brian was really looking forward to me talking about it, and to be honest, it's definitely going to be a future episode, and I honestly think I'm going to have my buddy Brian on to talk about his memories, and maybe by then we'll have sat down and actually watched season 2, so this way I have some memories as well, even though there will be a little more recent than what he's got. And that pretty much does it. I want to apologize for this episode being so short, but it being my first episode, I really didn't know how I wanted to have this structured, what the layout was going to be, and I really just, honestly, I'm just not comfortable doing this yet. So this is great because much like my buddies, the Two Dudes, did with their Super Mario Brother episode, which was their first, and they just recently recapped on the anniversary, this gives me the opportunity to come back later on and revisit Voltron as a whole, and I'll have my buddy Brian on, and we'll cover Vehicle Voltron at the same time, and it'll be a perfect match and a good way to harper back to this original episode, which hopefully I will look back on and be like, God, why did I do that? And yet still be able to smile and enjoy it. So, on the group, www.facebook.com, in groups, the Radical Retro Roundup Podcast is where you can find our group. I asked, what are your memories of Voltron? Philip Vaughn said, I still need an explanation on why the suit colors don't match up to the tiger colors. Well, Philip, first thing I want to do is let you know that they are lions, not tigers. Bears, oh my. Also, the only one that really didn't match up was Hunk. Hunk had like an orangish suit, and he had the yellow lion, and Lord only knows why that didn't pan out as to why they didn't match up. I'm sure it had something to do with the translation from um, Japanese to the American audience. Um, Philip also says that he got all the Voltron figures from his cousins who had grown out of them, and sadly, the blue one wasn't around. So Voltron was never quite complete, and he kind of hobbled around. My buddy Michael Kelso, he ended up saying that he doesn't know much about Voltron, and asked if that was the name of the robot or the team, and the answer is that's the name of the robot. The name of the team is Voltron Force. Philip Vaughn actually did a really good job explaining what Voltron was to Michael, saying that it was like G-Force without the martial arts and cool helmets. Love the feedback, guys. I definitely hope to get more. Definitely rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. I am also on Podomatic. Now, I normally would have closed out the show with obviously my information as far as where to find the podcast on iTunes and whatnot. And hopefully, most of you have found it on iTunes at the Radical Retro Roundup Podcast. If not, obviously, you can check out iTunes and search it. I think anything, if you search retro, I believe it comes up. It's that simple. But one of the segments I wanted to squeeze in here, since I got the time, and I definitely want to make it a normal thing, is what retro did I end up picking up this month? So this month, I actually didn't pick too much up that was retro, but I did end up picking up, obviously, Star Wars issue number 3, which, I mean, even though it's current, that's pretty retro. Star Wars originally was in 1977. That would be considered retro. And I also picked up Princess Leia number 1. Other than that, I ended up picking up 2 of my favorite Sega Genesis games. I ended up picking up Tasmania and Tiny Toon Adventures Buster's Hidden Treasure. And yeah, that's pretty much my retro haul for this month. I'm sure by the time next month rolls around, I will have more retro stuff. And if not, hell, maybe we'll start talking about some newer stuff as well. So, nice little retro tip here. Howard the Duck is back. He has his own comic book again. I've ended up picking up number 1 and the variant cover, and it was actually really good. I was excited, obviously, when he showed up in the end of Guardians of the Galaxy. Spoiler if you haven't seen the movie. And was really excited that they might actually go back and kind of erase what George Lucas did to that character. He didn't mishandle it. The actual original Howard the Duck would have to be rated R, which, I mean, I'll get into on a later podcast because Howard the Duck is definitely something I want to talk about, not only just the movie, but the comic books in general and that character and where he is now. So, yeah, so this is Joseph Copel saying, stay radically retro. And of course, just as I was about to sign off, I decided, hey, you know what? You should probably record something so people know what we're going to be doing next month. So, I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not going to give any hints to what it is. I'm going to play a snippet of tunage from what it is and hope that you guys can figure it out and hope that you guys get as excited as I am about it. So stay radically retro, and I'll see you next month.